Why has the forest gone quiet in 99 nights? New entity, new biome? Something feels wrong. The forest used to feel alive. Every match had noise, movement, random moments, chaos, danger. But now it feels different, quieter, almost like the game is preparing for something bigger. And that's exactly why people are starting to ask questions. Why has the force gone quiet? Are the developers secretly working on a massive update? Could a completely new entity be coming soon? Maybe even an entirely new biome? And if they're working on something huge, then why is it taking so long? Today, we are going deep into all the theories, clues, possibilities, and hidden signs that could explain what's happening. Because honestly, this silence might not be random at all. Alright, before we start, this video is mostly theories and speculations based on what players have noticed recently. Nothing here is officially confirmed unless the developers announce it themselves. But some of these theories actually make a lot of sense. Recently, the game has felt slower in terms of updates, smaller changes, less major content, and long periods without huge surprises. Normally, when a game goes quiet like this, one of two things is happening. Either the game is slowly losing momentum, or the developers are secretly cooking something massive behind the scenes. And personally, I think it might be the second option. Let's start with the biggest thing players notice: the atmosphere. The force doesn't feel the same anymore. A lot of players have been saying the game feels emptier lately. Not necessarily bad, just strange. Almost like the map is waiting for something. And if you really think about it, the forest has stayed mostly the same for a long time. Sure, we had updates before, new mechanics, balances, different events, but the actual world itself hasn't changed in a huge way recently. That's important because in survival and horror style games, developers usually keep environments fresh to stop players from getting bored. So, if the forge has stayed this unchanged for this long, maybe it's because they're planning something bigger and a normal update. Something that changes the entire feeling of the game, and that leads the biggest theory right now: a new biome. Imagine this: you spawn to a completely different area, no green forest, no familiar paths. Instead, maybe it's snowy mountains or a dead swamp, maybe even an abandoned city covered by nature. That would completely change the game, and honestly, a new biome makes a lot of sense. Think about it. Most successful survival games eventually expand their maps. Players need new areas to explore, new resources, new dangers, new hiding spots, and most importantly, new mysteries. Right now, players experienced already know almost everything about their current maps, where loot spawns, safe routes, danger zones, everything. A new biome would instantly make the game feel fresh again. And there are actually a few reasons why people think this could happen. First, the developers have been unusually quiet. Usually, when updates are small, developers communicate more often. But when they suddenly go silent for long periods, it sometimes means they are focusing heavily on a large project. Second, adding a biome takes a lot of time. People underestimate how difficult it is. It's not just building tricks and rocks. You need lighting, optimization, sound designs, new textures, balancing, new mechanics, new AI pathfinding. And if there are new enemies involved, that makes the development even harder, which brings us to another massive theory: a new entity. Now, this is where things get interesting because horror games survive on fear, and eventually Players stop being scared of all old enemies. Once you memorize attack patterns and understand how entities work, the fear disappears. The developers know this. So if they want players to feel nervous again, they need something unpredictable. A new entity could completely change the game overnight, and honestly, there are so many possibilities. Imagine an entity that only moves in silence, or one that copies play sounds. Maybe an entity that stalks players slowly instead of chasing them, or even something gigantic roaming through the trees. That would instantly make the forest terrifying again. And if a new biome is actually coming, then a new entity would fit perfectly. Because every biome needs its own danger. Think about snowy areas, visibility could be lower, footsteps louder, players easier to track. Now imagine a creature designed specifically for that environment. That would be insane. But there is another reason people believe a new entity might come in. The current pacing feels intentional, almost like the game is in setup phase. Developers sometimes slow down smaller updates before dropping something huge. It builds anticipation, and whether international or it definitely working. The community is full of theories right now. Now, this is the question everybody keeps asking. Why is it taking so long? And honestly, there are several possible reasons. First reason, the developers might be trying to avoid releasing a broken update. Now, let's talk about some of the craziest community theories. Some players think the forest is becoming quiet is actually part of the lore. And honestly, that would be genius. Imagine if the silence itself was a warning. Animals disappearing, ambient sounds changing, the atmosphere slowly becoming more unsettling over time, almost like a something huge is approaching. That kind of environmental storytelling would make the game way more immersive. Other thing, the developers might introduce seasonal map changes. Imagine the forest is changing over time. Winter versions, flooded areas, destroyed zones, fog covered regions. That would make every update feel unique. And then there is the theory that the next entity could actually interact with the map itself. Imagine trees moving, lights flickering, paths changing, safe zones disappearing. That would make players feel paranoid constantly. And honestly, that sounds terrifying in the best way possible. At the end of the day, this is probably the most important part. What does the game actually need right now? In my opinion, it needs is something big that changes replayability. Not just a tiny update people forget after 2 days. Something big enough to make players return constantly. For YouTubers to make videos, a new biome would help massively. A new entity would create fear again. Better progression systems would keep players grinding, and random events could make every match unpredictable because unpredictability is what keeps survival games alive. When players stop feeling surprised, they slowly stop playing. And that's why this next update is probably extremely important. If the developers are really working on something massive, this could completely revive the hype. But if the silence continues for too long without communications, players might start losing patience. So, the next few weeks or months could honestly decide the future of the game. But personally, I think something bigger is coming. The silence feels too intentional, the forest feels too changing, and the timing feels too strange. Whether it's a new biome, a terrifying new entity, or a complete overhaul of the game itself, I think the players are preparing for something major. Now, the real question is, will it actually be worth the wait? Let me know, what do you think? Do you believe a new biome is coming? What kind of entity would you want added? And do you think the game is secretly preparing for its biggest update ever? Or is the silence becoming a bad sign? Comment your theories below, because honestly, some community theories are crazier than anything I could come up with. And if you enjoyed this video, subscribe, because the second major are the new drops. We are covering it immediately. Thanks for watching, and maybe don't trust the silence in the forest, because sometimes silence is the craziest warning of all.